couple of years ago, you could easily detect what was AI. And now it's starting to get almost real. I saw this stat, the year 2027, 90% of all the content that we consume will be generated by AI.
I mean, AI is super scary to me, but I also think it's a tool that we have to utilize and we have to be ahead of it. If we can't tell the difference between what is real and what's not, the media can change, politics changes, and then the way you sell changes. So if AI really becomes that big part of our lives, what am I going to be doing?
And I think too, when you think about like social media, and we're such consumers, and it can be so dangerous, especially when you have something that's not real creating things that we're consuming constantly.
Micah and Sydney, thanks for coming on today. Is this? I think you said is your first podcast.
This is my first podcast.
Sydney, how many have you been on?
So for my internship a year ago, we started a podcast for like wellness, and we had a bunch of different topics. So
kind of familiar with the process.
A season of it, so maybe 10 episodes.
Well, sparked this conversation. Mike and I were having this conversation a couple weeks ago about how different generations consume and produce content. And I want to really go really deep into this conversation because a lot of the businesses that I coach, they have different demographics of who they're trying to reach. We were just talking about one that's trying to reach premenopausal women, which is 40 plus, 50 plus. I have a business that I reach out and target and moms and grandmoms. I've got businesses that target men, right? And different age groups. And I want to really go deeper into like how your generation grew up consuming content and how my generation grew up consuming content. So I'll go first. I'm 43. I'm technically a Zennial. So I'm in between Gen X and a millennial. So do you guys know what category let's call out the label now. Like we got to say how old you are and what label you label under.
Okay, I can go next, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm 26. I'm on the edge of like millennial and Gen Z, but I'm a Gen Z technically.
Gen Z technically.
But I have older siblings that are millennials. So I definitely I'm on the line. But
yeah.
I'm a Gen Z technically, so I'm cool.
So I'm cool. I'm 24, so Gen Z.
So officially Gen Z. Okay, and I've got two little Gen Alphas running around my house, two girls. So they're the next generation behind you. And I kind of want to bring in and mix some things that I saw my parents do, which are baby boomers, and how they consume content today. And how my daughters, who are 13 and 10, and how they consume content. So just want to kind of dive into this conversation. I'm assuming you grew up with complete internet and cordless phones, like cell phones, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up when there was no internet growing up, and there was the phones were still attached to the wall.
Okay, we did have a house phone.
You had a house phone?
For a small time.
I did too.
We had kids lines, which was really cool. When we got to a certain age, we added another phone line that was still attached to the wall, but it was a kids line, and then we had the adult line or the parents line. So the way that I grew up and even went to college for marketing and advertising, it was very polished. It had content, or let's call it marketing, had script writers and photography experts and video. Everything was produced, and it was scripted. And oftentimes there were focus groups done prior to the content being created to make sure that it resonated with the audience that the brand was trying to communicate with. And now we see totally the opposite. So I'd like to get y'all's perspective on just kind of growing up, I guess put yourself back in like middle school, high school, like what did, like now looking back, the trends that you're seeing and how you consume content.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
So I feel like we grew up watching just like television, and that was like our first introduction to ads. So just like commercials, and obviously if you're watching like Nick at Night or whatever, it's like kid-oriented ads. So that was my first introduction, but I feel like once we got on social media, things really took a change. So do you want me to go into that?
Yeah, for
how
sure.
Growing up. So that's something I was going to talk about today. I was like, it's so cool how micro influencers have become like the newest thing. Mm-hmm. But I also think that like that came out of COVID, and now it's kind of overdone. Like everywhere we look, it's like another ad on our social media. And so I think that's interesting. I feel like on Instagram, it's less in your face. It's like more of a photo. But on TikTok, it's like every other TikTok is like another ad. And so I think it's interesting how it has been so normalized. It's almost like everywhere now. Versus when we were kids, I feel like it wasn't the case. It was just on TV or maybe on a billboard or somewhere, but it's just like constantly being shoved down our throats, I feel like, these days. But that's my take. What about you?
Like on usage of social media growing up?
Yeah, just kind of growing up, like, have you seen it change between, like, go back to your middle school self, to your high school self, and now? What changes have you seen in the way that you consume content? I guess in the trust you have. It's more about the trust you have with the person that's creating it or posting it.
Yeah. I feel like very similar to you. Growing up, like, it was TV, and then I was allowed to have Instagram when I was like 13, 14. But we were extremely restricted on how often we could use our phones. Like, we didn't even have phones. It was like those iPod touches.
Yeah.
So like I didn't consume much social media, honestly, growing up. Not until I was probably like in college is when I really started to use social media. And I think it's super interesting because photos, like when I see an ad on Instagram or something, I'm a lot quicker to just like swipe past it, ignore it, not think twice. But on like TikTok, it's those videos, and the videos really get me because I'm like, oh, it's somebody sharing their experience. So of course I trust it. So I'm a lot more trusting with videos.
More trusting with videos. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. How when you're swiping, let's just take TikTok for example. When you're swiping kind of up, how fast are you processing that trust in that video? What I'm trying to figure out is like, how do I coach someone on how to build content that engages with their target demographic, whether you're Gen X, Gen Z, and whatever. So I'm trying to just figure out like how does your generation look at and build trust as you're swiping in that fast?
Do you want to go? Or I can
Do you
go?
have something?
I was going to say, I feel like you guys have probably seen this, but the ones that are like, stop, you need this product. Like, I hate those. I'm like,
Okay.
oh my gosh.
So cringe there.
Cringe, yeah. I get needing a hook, and obviously working on your socials and working on my client socials. I think it's about building that trust in a way that's not shoving down the throat, and it's kind of just more natural. And the product is almost like an afterthought. It's not the first thing that you shove in their face. And so for me, I think it's really cool. There's an influencer on TikTok. Her name's Delaney Rowe. She has such a cool take on advertisements. She brings in a lot of comedy. It's almost like a skit, and the product is just a part of the skit.
Yeah.
It's like Charlotte Tilbury lipstick or something like that. But it's so cutting edge. It's so different than anything I see out there. I think that type of content is really interesting, and we need to pivot into something more creative that really gets attention without it being so heavy on the sales. So that's something I've noticed. And then I guess for me, like, I love videos too. It builds trust, but after a while it does get a little bit too much when it's just, for me, I'm on TikTok a lot. So probably I'm on social media more than Sydney, but I've noticed that it's like, I'll have this really great experience with a TikTok. I'll be like brought to tears. It's like this really emotional moment with like a creator, and then like, boom, ad. And it's like, oh, it just killed that connection. It killed that moment I was having. And so I think it almost, for me, I like a little bit of like a photo ad sometimes, because I'm like, I don't want it constantly being shoved down my throat, if that makes sense.
Totally. What is, first thing you wake up in the morning, what app do you pull up?
Instagram.
Instagram?
I know, that's like a millennial answer.
Yeah, you're like, that's kind of like what I would do. What about you?
The weather app.
The weather app. Oh, yeah. You're like my mom. No, I don't even think my mom would go there.
I would say Instagram, like after I've kind of had like my whole routine of the morning.
You're better than me.
My first social media is Instagram.
Yeah, social media, probably messages for my first, but then I get the most notifications on Instagram for like clients and everything. I've turned off notifications on TikTok because otherwise I'd just like never get off.
Yeah.
But
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess if
probably Instagram.
the first app I pull up, it's like, so some days I'm training in the mornings and some days I'm not. So on the days I'm training, I'm immediately wake up and think about, okay, what event am I training for? Like, what am I about to work out? So I'm more going now into either going to listen to a podcast or putting on some music or if I'm doing something on the bike, I'll get a bike. I have apps for like Garmin and stuff. But like on days that I'm going into like pretty much waking up and then going to work immediately, I tend to go to email first, just to kind of see what came in over the previous night, or the previous end of the day before, right? To kind of start to kind of gauge. I don't really look at social media until typically later in the day. So I don't even like Instagram, Facebook are probably the two primary I go to. I'll probably start to engage with those later in the day, and I'm curious to know that about your generation. Is it straight to social media right when you wake up, or is it something else like the weather app? I think that that you're planning out your day like a normal human being should.
I'm embarrassed. I'm like Instagram first, then everything else.
Totally.
I feel like for me, I do check my email too. I guess like that is something because I'll get notifications. So it's usually based on what's the most urgent thing that pops in. So if I have like a really important email or a really important DM on Instagram, I think that's what gets my attention. But I would say social media wise, definitely Instagram. I don't get on Facebook that often, unless it's like work related. And then TikTok, I'm like, I'll start my morning off with that too, which is horrible. I should probably be on the weather app, like planning out my outfit or something. But yeah.
I don't know. The weather app is pretty embarrassing.
No,
I'm
I
like,
love
if
that.
it's sunny, I'll be in a good mood today. If it's cloudy, I'm just kidding.
When you're thinking like things that you purchase, all right, transactions that you make, and what influences that? Is it starting from some video, or does it, like we talked about email? Email is definitely a channel to consume content. And I use email a lot to acquire customers. So I'm curious to know what your generation thinks about buying something from an email versus buying something from TikTok versus buying something from, I think the content's going to change a lot with Gen Alpha, with the way that they consume content. So I'm just trying to kind of, how do I prepare my clients for the future?
I personally, like if I see an email come through that's like an ad or something, I'm really quick to delete it right away. I don't know why. Like I think it's just our generation. It's kind of like an annoyance.
What about if it's something you've bought before and you've already have a relationship?
It depends if I like it. So if it was something that I like subscribe to, I'm probably more likely to at least look at it, maybe quickly read over it, and then decide whether I want to delete it or maybe hang on to it for the future. Mm-hmm. But other things where it's like you go to a website, it asks you to put your email in, so therefore they can send you ads. Right. I typically just delete it right away. Probably bad. I probably should look at what's coming through, but I typically am just quick to delete. My biggest thing that I found is like TikTok influencers who buy products from like Amazon, or typically Amazon is like my weakness. They'll post videos of them like unpackaging and then like trying on the outfit or using the product, and that tends to get me the most.
That gets you the most.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm making an assumption and generality here, but I'm assuming they're using some sort of affiliate link to drive traffic back to that product to Amazon, and that's how they're monetizing that.
Yep.
Okay, so that's good to know. Like you want to see someone experiencing the product.
Yes.
That you have trust with over an email that might have come in with a discount code or a promo code or some sort of flash sale or special or.
And I think the reason is because in my brain, that feels very automated. Like it feels just like a robot typed it up and sent it out and nobody cares. Like it doesn't feel personal, even though for some people it is. Like they took time to write that email. They took time to, construct this thing. But for something like a video, I'm watching somebody talk about the product, talk about the way it feels, the way that it fits them. I get to see it like a visual. So then I'm a lot more inclined to be interested in it.
Cool. Thoughts on that,
Yeah.
Micah?
Well, I will say this, like emails, I am the same way. It's like immediate delete. I don't even open them. But I will say this, I catch myself, and I always notice when I do this, there's some that I will open. And I'm like, why am I opening this over the others? And so I think the title is really important. That's like the first thing people see. So like, I guess my advice to you for coaching is just like really hone in on that title. Like what's going to get the emotional response? What's going to actually make that person touch, the email or like tap onto it? So for me, I think I've noticed like the personalized thing is so important. So like getting away from that mass email and more of like a personalized list of like, hey, like this is women oriented, or this is like your generation oriented, or this is your birthday month, or like whatever the thing is. And so it kind of personalizes. So I know I'm like, oh, they had to like think through this a little bit deeper.
At least segment you into a better category.
Or I think for me too, the video thing with Amazon is so key. I think they've cracked the code with that, because I think, have you seen that they do like almost like a Pinterest board of products on Amazon?
Oh, yeah.
You can follow creators on Amazon, and they have all these lists made of like, 2025 gift ideas or whatever. And so, oh my gosh, Christmas rolls around, I'm on those. I'm like, what can we get my boyfriend, or what can we get my dad? Because I don't know how to buy like men's gifts, and they've got it all laid out. And so I mean, it's just tap, tap, it's at your house. So I think it's also about making the process seamless for your client or for your customer. How can you, make it as easy as possible for them to purchase? Cut out all of the junk and just make it simple. I think that's also key.
Yep. What are your generation to kind of, you're representing the Gen Zs, right? Mm-hmm. Or Gen X? Are y'all Gen
Z?
Gen Z. Okay. What about SMS, like text message marketing? And when you get a message from a brand, what are your thoughts that kind of go through your mind on opening that link and kind of proceeding forward, engaging?
For me, if it's a local brand, so like I get my nails done all the time. If my local salon is running a deal of like 20% off pedicures or something like that, I'm like, I hop on that. I'm like, I'm going to get my nails done today. That's awesome. Because they don't run those deals very often. If it's like Lululemon or a bigger brand, I'm usually like, I don't take it as seriously. But yeah, the local brands for sure. Like local to Nashville.
Thoughts on SMS and how you consume text messages from companies
so
specifically?
Interesting, because I've seen all those things about like scams.
Oh, that too. Yeah, that's
sending
true.
out
Totally.
texts and it's like, don't click this link. So I'm typically like, I look at it and I'm like, I can't tell if this is actually the brand or if it's like a random text coming through. So most of the time I don't trust it unless it's like I've used it before, it's worked, or I've like signed up and immediately gotten that text. So I know that number is that brand.
I feel the same way.
A trust perspective and
that.
clicking on links, I'm surprised that your generation just kind of knows to navigate that naturally because you grew up with it. Like my mom's clicking on every link possible.
Right. My grandma too.
Right. So I'm always having to reset passwords and take credit card numbers, get new credit cards, whatever. That's how that generation, like they had trust with brands because the way that they consume content was so polished, and now everything is coming at them in a lot of different ways. Where your generation, like you've been conditioned to know that link could be a risk, right? I think with SMS specifically, the way that we use it and the way that I've used it to monetize and to grow brands, it's more about product releases. Like we're releasing a new line, we're releasing a new product or whatever, or some sort of special access discount that not everybody gets. Mm-hmm. That's what really works the best. And those people have already had some sort of a brand connection or affinity to the brand, so that when it comes up, they were kind of sitting on the sidelines as a purchaser, and now we're pulling them through. It's more of a pull through sales tactic than it is a top of funnel fast churn or fast conversion.
One thing I've noticed that's kind of newer in social media is those like group chats you can make within Instagram. Have you seen those?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So you can make a group. They have to I guess subscribe to it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can put people in a group. They have to you promote it and they join it.
Right.
But once they join this like group chat, you can promote those things without it being so texty. It's a lot more, you feel more trusting of it. And a lot of times they do more creative marketing. So they can send a photo or a video and make it kind of like a conversation. You'll see people interact with it, kind of like an Instagram post.
And do you feel more comfort and more trust there with the brand?
100%. And
I think it's that like personal touch. Yeah, because you feel like you've been invited to join like this huge content creators page, like personal
Like
group
private
chat,
access.
even
Almost
though it's
But
exclusive.
on platform, meaning inside the platform in which you engage with that person on, right?
Right,
It's like
Instagram.
SMS and email. I feel kind of like that's mine. Like you're coming to me where like the other social medias like Instagram, like specifically this case, I think we're meeting together at that location,
Yeah.
and it's more like trust.
Yes.
You're not pulling me away from what I'm currently doing, kind of thing.
It's less invasive,
Yeah.
I feel like. And I also feel like they do those drops of like, hey, coming soon. You kind of get that like, you might even get a early access or something like that. So it gives you that feeling of exclusivity and belong and like all of that, which I feel like text, you don't get that feeling, especially if it's not a group chat. So I don't know, you feel that community within it.
Kind of one way versus one to a small group that it's almost like a conversation that's more natural than one to many kind of thing, like a broadcast thing.
Right.
You started to touch on this, and I want to go a little bit deeper on it, about micro influencers and you watching their video and then having more trust in their content and the products that they represent. So I'd like to unpack a little bit about how you build trust with it. Do you look at follower count in that trust, or does that matter?
I may have a different take than Sydney on this. I feel like for me, I noticed that there's not always a lot of great brand identity or identity for the creator. A lot of times their identity is just pushing out products like these Amazon storefront girls and things like that. Whereas before, when this really first started around COVID, I felt like the creators they were using for these micro influencers had a lot of personality, had a lot of creativity. And now it's kind of turned into this like generated thing. And I've noticed also with that is like I get really turned off by those types of ads, but like my grandmother doesn't even realize it's an ad. She's like, this is so nice. Like this girl really loves this top. You should get this top. She's just trying to like share her experience. I'm like, she's getting paid to talk about that. But to me, I just off the bat, I know it's an ad and I just skip like off the bat, kind of like the email thing. Like if I notice that there's an ad token above it on TikTok, I'm out. But that's just
you don't
me.
look at follower count. You don't look at any other indicator. I'm trying to find out like what indicators are you looking at to consider opening or engaging with that content.
For me, follower count doesn't really matter. It's more about the product. And I think that there's a lot of great use with micro influencers. I'm not saying it's all bad. I think I've just watched it become this like thing that it wasn't when it started. And I feel like it's getting a little bit too common. Like everyone's a micro influencer now, which is great. Like I relate to those people more than I do these, celebrities. But at the same time, it just feels like there's no creativity anymore. It's all just like, buy. How can we get this person to click kind of thing? And I want social media to kind of get back to like a connection again. And so for me, I don't think the follower account really matters. It's more just about the delivery.
Yeah. Thoughts on that?
I agree with her. Yeah.
So you never look at follower count?
I do look, but I don't necessarily, it doesn't turn me away if they have less followers than someone else.
Yeah.
But it's more the like, if they are selling something well, like if other videos of theirs is their personality and them doing things, and then it's every once in a while they're like, hey,
So
I
it can't
tried this
be
product.
every post being some sort of sponsored
Right.
whatever
I also
product.
Then it just feels like it's like scripted. It doesn't feel really genuine. But when it's like you're following them and they have all these like fun stories and you're getting to like see them, then when they promote something, I tend to be a lot more inclined to want to try it.
Right. Like that identity piece is so important. And I feel like that's what we notice is like those people that just all they do is promote Amazon. And it's like, okay, but who are you outside of selling Amazon stuff? And then for me, I also think,
I want to touch on something
Yeah.
real quick before so like I agree, and I want people to understand that like when you're creating content, it can't always be about the product. It's got to be the ancillary and the things that you do outside of that product, and the things that you do outside of your company, or the things that your company is involved in, or it might be something with your employees or something that you give back to, or something else besides selling all the time. I think you have to have more of Gary Vee has the jab right hook kind of thing, like where you have to have 3-to-1 kind of ratio. I think it's probably more of that, where you have like more of your content is the not selling thing, and it's trying to build community. And then, hey, yeah, don't forget over here, we've got this, cool product or this sale going on or something. So
totally. I also think there's like an exclusivity to finding these really niche, like small brands that are really creative, and not everyone has it. I think there's almost like an element that makes me want that more than this overly produced thing. Because I feel like that was what worked at first, was like overproducing this stuff. It's cheap. It's kind of like Shein or something like that. And now I think people are getting way away from the overproduced stuff that everyone has, and they want to find these little pieces on TikTok or wherever else that are really special and their own thing, and harder to find, and more like, I feel like that's more exclusive than the mass-produced stuff. So finding a way to sell in a way that's creative, I think, is so important for my generation, at least. Yeah. Do you agree?
Oh, for sure.
Totally. I saw this. So I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about how AI is kind of taking over content creation and how, a couple of years ago, you could easily detect what was AI. And now it's starting to get almost real. Like they're like, you're real close. So like I saw this stat that like the year 2027, it's 2025 right now, in less than 2 years, 90% of all the content that we consume will be generated by AI. So 90% is the stat.
That's so scary.
Okay. So now what do we need to start preparing for to cut through that noise? Because I think the authenticity that you're talking about is so important, and building community and building relationships, and not saying that we're not going to rely on AI. Totally, we will. But I'd like to get y'all's thoughts now on how you notice AI coming about, and kind of what the direction's going from how you consume content, and how you resonate with buying a product or something from that content.
Do you want to go?
Yeah.
I mean, AI is super scary to me, but I also think it's a tool that we have to utilize, and we have to be ahead of it. But I do think it's scary when you think about the people that don't know how to discern if it's real or not. Like, for instance, older generation. I get reels from my grandma often, and she thinks these are real places. And that's great. I mean, these things are harmless. It's like a beautiful train ride in the snow or something like that. It's nothing bad. But, after a while, it's like, okay, if we can't tell the difference between what is real and what's not, the media can change, politics changes, and then the way you sell changes. So I think it's important to retain that connection, authenticity, but also the truth. And I'm very truth oriented. So it's kind of scary for me to think like, oh, if AI really becomes that big of a part of our lives, do we lose that with it? And also, what am I going to be doing? As a creator, or as a person in social media, where is my place if AI really does take over? And we kind of talked about that the other day, of like finding that human connection, finding things outside of this with community and with physical events, and really, the things you can't replace with AI, and figuring out what that is for every single one of us.
Totally. Sydney, your thoughts on AI? Like,
definitely scary. Yeah. And I was laughing so hard because her grandma will send me like reels, and it's the cutest thing ever. But I didn't know she sent you reels too. Yeah.
That's amazing. She loves her reels.
But it's like scary to think that it's getting so hard to know what's reality and what's not. Like, even my little brother will send me things, and I can be kind of gullible, so he does this on purpose. I'm like, no way that exists. And he's like, Sydney, it's fake. Like, come on. Yeah. So it is scary. And I think too, when you think about like social media, and just we're such consumers, and can be so dangerous, especially when you have something that's not real creating things that we're consuming constantly. And I do think there can be some benefits to it, obviously. But I think we're like, the community piece is just going to be more and more important, because I think people are going to crave that more and more as we become more like social media and consumers. We're going to hit a point, I think, where it's like, okay, I feel extremely lonely and isolated. Like, I need to find that community-based
I totally agree. Community is like, I think I'm going all in on community. So let's talk about how a brand should be thinking about creating community. So what are your thoughts on creating community? on like TikTok Live or Instagram Live, like doing things like that? Because I think this is what sparked this exact conversation with you, Micah, was like, should we or should I start doing like live coaching calls and things like that to kind of build community and build authenticity? So do y'all consume lives at all?
For me, it's rare that I watch her live, but usually it is for building that trust. And so I follow this account, Daily Drills. They are these two girls out of California that build this clothing brand, and they do one drop and then no returns. So there is that level of trust you need of like...
They do it through live only?
Well, they drop the day before they do the live. And so with the live, you can be like, what does a medium look like on you versus like, you know, you're trying to gauge the right fit and everything because you can't return. And so, and it's kind of that exclusive, like when the drop hits, you have 5 minutes before it sells out. So there's that need for an Instagram live to build the trust of sizing, of what it really looks like on camera versus a photo. Because you're making an investment that you can't really return on. So I think for that, that's when I've realized like, oh, I really want to watch this live. I get to ask a question. I get to see kind of what it looks like in real life. But I also think there's a level of like interaction you want to have with your customer or your community of just like, hey, let's have a conversation and it's real time. It's not this curated response on a DM or an email. It's live. I think that there's something really special about that.
Totally. Do you watch lives at all?
It's really funny. Actually, I never have. And literally this week, like Monday, one of the local Pilates studios in Franklin, they posted like a live of them doing a workout. And it was like just the person who owns the studio and then one of her friends, and she was coaching the friend, but you could do it with them. And I like watched it and participated because I was like, this is so cool. It sets them apart because I can get all these ads of all these Pilates studios, yoga, like gyms, and they all look great and they all have a unique, ness to them.
Do you already know and go to that gym?
I don't.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and I like follow them on social media. Yep. I think they're like, I've heard her speak before. They have a really cool purpose behind why she came up with this gym, all this stuff. Yep. So I've already been a follower of them, but then getting to actually participate was like, maybe I do want to go there. It completely changed
kind of helping you going through your transformation of not knowing who they were to kind of building some connection, now going into this live moment, now possibly thinking about buying.
Right.
That's a monthly, I'm assuming some sort of monthly kind of access subscription kind of thing where you go to the gym. So that you got to think, if you're the brand owner there, that is not a short marketing funnel or a cycle, right? That's long term.
Right.
Like that you've got to be building relationship and community long term, and live may have been the trigger that converted you, but there was other things up and downstream from that live to build that brand awareness, right?
Right.
I honestly didn't start looking at lives other than just using it as here recently to investigate how I should be considering lives for the brands that I work on, right? And I do have some brands that have tested it and it's not worked. I have some brands who have tested it and it didn't work and then went away from it and then went back to it and crushed it. So it's like I'm still kind of trying to figure out how best, but it really comes through this like authenticity of like behind the scenes, how we make the product, how our employees think about and do things, like literally showing them packing up orders and talking about like, hey, this is so-and-so's order going to Timbuktu, Texas, and they're packing the order, right? So I'm really curious like around that whole live experience, and I think that's going to be something that kind of changes as we move forward. So I think this is something to watch out for and start planning for, and like how you're going to create your live strategy now versus your email strategy, your SMS, your static posts, video posts, your influencer posts, right? So like it's now this total combination, but it goes back to what you said, Sydney, about like you started engaging with this brand. She posted some things that you built trust with, and then she had the live, right? It's not the live first kind of thing, but it was something that helped convert. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to know, like, I feel like it's like the purest form of social media. It's like the rawest thing you could possibly put out there because you can't cut, you can't, polish. Even the raw content that people post, there's probably some level of editing. There's probably some captions added on. Maybe they cut out one part, but this is truly the rawest form. And so I think people really resonate with that in a world where everything's so polished. Even the raw stuff is polished. And so I think there's an element of that community and trust building that's so, so important that we've lost along the way. And I think Instagram Lives or TikTok Lives is kind of bringing back that feeling of connection again.
Totally. When it comes to building community, the topic that we're talking about, what else can brands be doing? We talked about happy hour event, right? That's kind of hard for some brands to do because they sell internationally. I totally get it, right? But you could still have some sort of, I have a brand that I work with. They had like an employee appreciation kind of party at their warehouse and invited their customers. And one of their customers drove across the country to come to it. Like drove from
Wow, that's awesome.
Washington State to Tennessee. And they just invited their customers if they wanted to. Hey, we're doing kind of this fun event at our warehouse. You come see it, right? What other things that brands could be doing kind of to build quote unquote community?
I think for me,
what do you look for in brand in that, what you're seeking, I guess, as a consumer, maybe put that.
I think it definitely depends on the brand and depends on what you're selling. But for me, I think we all to some level want to feel like we belong with the brand, or we want to feel like we resonate with the community, with the brand. And so any way that you could bring people together, I think with local brands like you guys, like I think the happy hour is awesome. I think coming together, having this shared time and being able to really get to know each other was so powerful and so cool, because now I look at all these clients differently, or these people that you coach differently. I'm like, oh, I really know who Claudia is now if we talk about Claudia, or if we're talking about another client strategy, I really know this person. So I think just bringing in more physical events, like we said with AI, like we need to bring back that physical connection. And I think pop-ups are really cool. Sometimes the major cities get to have like more of a, it's harder for small cities to have that, but maybe you can drive to Nashville for that, or maybe you can drive to New York for that. But yeah, I think pop-ups are really cool for like these like more fashion brands, or, like she said, Pilates, like doing those like classes online where we're all together, maybe doing it. Even if we don't see each other, we're all connecting over that shared experience. So things like that are what I noticed.
Live events. I mean, would you go to an event if a brand or an influencer that you had a lot of trust with, would you go to those events?
I think also promoting like free, or like something that's, like I said, like more accessible for your community. I think that would be key. Like maybe putting on a free Pilates event, or I love when they do collaborations with another.
I was gonna say the collabs.
Collabs are so key. I would tell you that all the time, but like, there's a Pilates studio in town and they did a collab with like a smoothie place. And I think that's really cool. Just like combining different elements. And it feels more creative too.
Yeah, totally. The collaboratives, I think it helps kind of leverage each other's audience, but also kind of like some trust factor there, that like these two brands are kind of working with each other and not necessarily competing or fighting each other for attention and awareness. So I look at like, I'm big into endurance sports, and some of my favorite entrepreneurs, Jesse Itzler, Nick Bear with Bear Performance Nutrition, and I look at their brands as kind of inspiration and what they're doing. Nick Bear just bought a ranch in Texas and hosted a last man standing race and built, he's a content generation machine all around this go one more kind of this persona or this brand identity. And he's gotten and built so much trust and now starting to have live events around basically nutritional products. Like gels and things that we would consume in the sport. And Jesse Itzler had his Running Man Festival and these like he has this rare access or exclusive access to come to his house and do these cool events. And I look at that and like, that is how you build community. And you've got different layers, like where the exclusive access might be expensive. right? But there's only going to be 30 people, maybe 30, 50 people. But then like Running Man Festival, like it's open to the entire community, more accessible. So I think as we move forward, building community in those type of events is important. So we like just thoughts on like what events would you want to see an influencer put on, or like thoughts around that?
I was kind of going off your like the fitness side of things. Like I see a lot on like TikTok of runners, for instance. They'll post a day in their life or come run 9 miles with me or something like that. And they're filming themselves kind of talking as they're running. That's cool. It's like, awesome, you're a great runner. Like that's incredible. But then they'll put on these like come run with me events. And so it's free and it's encouraging other people who enjoy running to come together, run together. And so I think it's things like that it's like you start building this whole community of people and all you're doing is saying, come run with me. Like it's not hard, but yet you just built this whole group of people who now can connect over something that you love too. So I think that's key. It's just like finding those things and running with it.
Have y'all gone to those local events, or like would you seek out that, I guess?
Yeah, totally. I think depending on the brand and depending on the influencer, I totally would go to those things, especially if it's like women oriented. Like I think that's super cool to connect over. If it's like, you know, raising for awareness of something I care about, like I think it's just about finding the purpose under it. But yeah, totally, I would.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, you know, necessarily fitness. Like sometimes like somebody will post like one guy had this like coffee event in town about like, hey, how is AI disrupting business? Like that's like, okay, I'm kind of interested in that, learn more about it. Like I'll go to a coffee event like that. It doesn't have to be a running event or anything like that. It could be, but like any kind of product could like go to your, like where can you meet your target demographic, right? Where can you meet them at in person, live? And I try to coach people on this topic called rent the room. Go rent a room and force yourself to set a date and get live bodies in the room that resonate with the demographic that you're trying to to communicate with, and do the customer outreach and the discovery. And it forces you through this exercise of setting a time, a date. I want to get 30 people there, or a goal to get, you know, whatever there. And if it fails, you learn from it. Hey, no one showed up. Why didn't no one show up? Did I not promote it right? What were the reasons? Like what was the outcome that I didn't give them up front that they were going to get by attending this event?
Totally. I think networking is so important, and understanding like on the psychology level of like, what really are your desires? What really are your needs? Like all the marketing aside, if you don't understand the psychology of your client or your customer, then you're missing the mark every time. There's not enough color or photography or videos that are really going to ever replace that. And so I think the best way to do that is in person, of course.
Yeah. I want to switch gears and talk about this topic that I don't hear a lot about, but I think it's coming. And I'm going to call it unmarketing for now. Just for now, unmarketing. How do we make marketing not look like marketing? And I'm watching my two daughters and the things that they consume and the brands that they recognize are now starting to come in the format of what I would label right now, for lack of a better term, unmarketing. And you hit on this a little bit when you were saying there was a specific woman that was maybe creating something in comedy, and then like was it lipstick or something?
Right. Yeah. Like a skit. Mm-hmm.
Like a skit that had lipstick. And I'm looking at brands like Corporate Natalie. I think she's got a really funny kind of comedy about corporate lifestyle, but then she'll weave in something like a Scripps it's an app that there's all kinds of like, or Scribe, sorry, not Scripps. Scribe is an app company that I see using unmarketing really well, and they're getting comedy influencers to not start with the hook. Like typically we lead with the hook, show the product in the first 3 seconds, right? Get the value across in the first 10 seconds, right? And sometimes the product is only mentioned once and sometimes never even shown, right? So like, I'm curious to know, is that next generation gonna, like, how do we target that next generation instead of my parents, where like it's this polished, produced content, and then we layer on community. But now, how do we hide marketing now inside of quote unquote marketing?
Well, as a social media manager, like, we're already doing this. Like, this is already here. And I think it's about finding creative ways to chat about something without the pressure. And I think people really are tired of being pressured to buy or consume something you're trying to get across. Even if you feel like it's natural, a lot of times, especially people our age, we pick up on it. Whereas like maybe my grandmother doesn't. She's like, oh, this nice girl is just talking about a shirt. And I'm like, she's selling
You're
that.
kind of preconditioned to identify marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Identify, let's call it advertising, because that's a little bit different, more narrow term
Right.
than marketing.
Yeah, with advertisement, I feel like I can pick up on it within 3 seconds. Like, I know off the bat. And I think nowadays they really make you label it too, so you can see it more clearly. But yeah, I think, like I said, with Delaney Rowe, that she's so great. You guys have to like check her out later. But just incorporating skits and comedy, I think social media is supposed to be a relief from our busy day. It's supposed to be a way for us to enjoy something and maybe even be entertained a little bit. And when ads are just being thrown at you left and right, you really want to find an ad that's fun to watch. And hers are so entertaining. So I think finding that balance of like, yes, you want to obviously show your product, but I think it should be like I said, almost like an afterthought. Like, it's just kind of there, but it's not the focal point.
Focus
yeah.
point. Yeah, totally.
And I think like it's kind of funny, like if you watch like early 2000s shows, they used to do this in like do you remember this, like TV
placement,
shows?
like product placement, like you go back and watch Mad Men from like the 60s and 70s when they were producing content or producing advertising. It might have a Pepsi sitting here in this podcast, and that is product placement, right? And that was the subliminal thing of unmarketing. And I think now moving forward, we really have to think about marketing and branding is this more natural, subliminal unmarketing concept versus here's my hook, here's my product.
Oh yeah.
Right? Here's my call to action. That's the typical way we create content, or a lot of people create content. And now we have to rethink about it being this more unpolished, unproduced thing.
Yeah, I think it's something that worked for a while and it was great for a while. And I think now it's been overdone. I think we're all kind of like, okay, we know this is a hook. We're not fooling anybody at this point. We know this is a call to action. They feel that now. Whereas like 3 years ago, maybe they didn't notice that.
Yeah.
And so how do we pivot? How do we evolve with advertisement?
Or I will say maybe it's like 1,000 golden BBs instead of one silver bullet. So instead of having all of your BBs as this polished stuff, maybe only having one polished content and then having a bunch of natural, authentic, creative, community, unmarketing types of content, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the way to think about it instead of...
Totally. Variety is so key, and you need a little bit of everything. Yeah. For sure.
As I've started to kind of talk about this unmarketing concept, people are like, well, I'm not funny. I'm not a comedian. What else can I do, right? And there's like edutainment, like educating people on how to do or how to create or how to just what they've learned, like their experience. Like you can weave in things and products or services through educating people, right? It doesn't have to be comedy. I think there's a way to do it through live events, right? Like you don't have to stand up and say, okay, our sponsor is, like we just had this happy hour last week, and Pilot and Riggs Davey, a law firm, sponsored the event for us. So thanks to them. But we tried not to make like where typically you show up and like we want to call attention to our sponsor and da 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 da. No, we just tried to make a good like subtle connection between, hey, we want to thank them for providing the drinks and the appetizers for the night. And if you need legal help or if you need accounting help, here they are, right? And it wasn't this pushy thing. And I think that's more of like the subtle unmarketing things that I think you could do at live events.
Totally.
So just kind of thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think unmarketing is definitely the future if it's not already here. And I think people are actually more inclined to use these people or do buy the product when they feel like no pressure. Like, hey, it's here if you want it, no pressure. And so I think if you can tap into that and figure out a way to target with that, I think it's super, super key. Yeah, I think the whole like just Pepsi here, and it's like, yes, this is my favorite drink, but we're talking about something else and it's just to the side. I think that's going to be like the future potentially. We'll see.
Because I feel like trends just repeat itself. Like that's the reality is like
Product placement has been around for a long time.
Yeah, and I think I was gonna say you do a good job. Like I've seen on some of your clients that you're marketing for, like you have clients who it's a hard product to sell, and you do it, or you guys come up with content that's like, I enjoy watching it. And I'm like, wow, like I'm going to follow this person. And maybe if I ever need this, I'm going to use them because they're coming up with this hilarious content. And I'm like not even realizing what it's about until I go to the page because I enjoyed the content so much.
Right.
So I do think you do a good job on that. But I was also thinking like, I watch a reality TV show and like they have those Olipop drinks always like in the show. They don't market it whatsoever. I already love those drinks, but then I see a new flavor and I'm like, oh, I've been out of that for 2 weeks. I'm gonna go to the store tomorrow and buy it, and it seems unintentional, and I'm sure they're planning that. They have the drinks, they're sponsored probably by Olipop, but it gets my attention because it's just sitting there.
Totally. That's a great example of, I think, unmarketing is putting your product in ways that's not advertising and not sponsored posts. And I think the FTC, I think they've come out and they're making a lot of changes, but like not everybody's going to play by the rules and say that this is a sponsored post, right? So, and when we go back to AI, I think the FTC will roll out more regulation around labeling what is and isn't AI generated, but not everybody's going to follow the rules. So, and the enforcement on that's, to be determined. And I think it's the brands that are going to rise up above the others are the ones that build community and engage with their core demographic in a way that meets them where they're at or invites them to things that they want to do that it may experience their product. All right. Switching toward
could I say something really fast?
For sure.
One thing I totally forgot to mention is, so I use comedy obviously a lot. That's like my favorite way to promote or market because I like to laugh. I think I have a good sense of humor, but to be determined. But not everybody is a comedian, and that makes sense because not everyone can be funny. But I think that, having an emotional response to, your content, that's going to be what keeps people watching and keeps people engaged. And so my advice with that is, if you're not a comedian, what are your strong suits? So if you are, we laugh at like rage baiting. It's actually the funniest thing, but have you heard of this? Rage baiting?
Topic. Ding, ding, ding. Rage
baiting. It's content that like makes you angry. Like you get rage from watching it and you can't stop because you're baited. They bait you to be, so you keep watching it, but it's just making you angry. So don't do that. Don't do rage baiting, but there are different ways to engage in emotion. And so I think like, even if it's like finding this sentimental story you really want to share that connects on like a deep level with someone, or, finding these different ways to spark emotion, it doesn't always have to be comedy. Comedy is a great way, but it can also be sentimental. It can be personal. Those kinds of things work too.
And some behind the scenes, like you can do something like, hey, this is what it takes for me to make this product, or this is the situation that my team's facing right now with this, macro market thing going on with tariffs or, whatever. Right. And I think that builds trust, and
like
awareness,
frustration
and engagement,
even.
right.
Even if it's not anger, frustration, like, hey, like I'm a business owner too, and I'm frustrated over this tariff thing, or I'm frustrated over this, loophole that I'm trying to figure out. People want to feel like they resonate with you over some type of an emotion. And so finding that, and it doesn't have to be like a strong emotion, but just some level of connection with your customer, client.
As I look forward to like the Gen Alphas, the younger ones, and we got thinking 10, 15 years ahead, right? How do we target that demographic? It's going to be a totally different game changer. The way that my kids consume content is not necessarily on a screen, because they're still young enough where we don't give them screens. But what they watch on YouTube Shorts, or what they watch, or what they listen to on Alexa, right? They're interacting with media in a little bit different way than I grew up interacting with media, right? And I think the Audible, and we did a podcast on this and we haven't released it yet, about sonic branding and the Audible part of how we resonate and consume and recognize brand awareness. Like for example, like if I had to ask my daughters, they know nothing about cars, name an auto parts company, I guarantee you they're going to say O'Reilly. Right? Because that resonates with them and they've heard it, right? They don't even know where an O'Reilly store, or they would recognize the O on the building maybe, right? So like, while that's still true to older generations, I think using sound is going to become more and more important, because they're consuming content from phone to TV to Alexa to a Roblox or like some sort of other toy type of thing, and I've noticed that like with my older one, they can be kind of side by side with their friends, consuming content and consuming other content at the site, like watching a show.
I never do that ever.
Right. So like, how do you break through all that noise? And I'm really just like watching this really closely, because like in the next 15 years, they consume content at a much faster pace, or a much sporadic, I don't know if sporadic's the right word, or it's just like
attention span is,
so small. The attention
so
span.
small, yeah. I think one thing I'm noticing, and maybe I'm just realizing it now, is like a theme of kind of returning back to the old ways of marketing. And maybe that's kind of part of the future. If you look at these, even fashion brands like Jacquemus, like I think they did like a lot of like banana themed, fashion, and they had like a banana car, and like these old ways of promoting, or like using billboards again, or using these big posters and taking, these like old fashioned photos. And I think some of that stuff really is trending right now and kind of aesthetic. And so it's coming back in a way.
Or has it ever really gone away? We've just overlaid.
It's like when menus are coming back. Like no one wants a QR code anymore. Yeah. We want to hold a menu. I think that's kind of the idea with marketing too. It's like we've seen enough of the digital. We kind of want to get back to like the postcards again.
Yeah. Or I mean, like the handwritten letters and things that just don't take place anymore. I think that's a great way, especially for early brands. It's not scalable, but it's a really good way to kind of build some human connection, is handwriting a letter. I know we're about up on time. Anything else y'all want to talk about on this topic? Anything you just want to get off your mind?
Do you have anything?
Do you?
I've been talking up a storm. No, you go for it.
No, I'm just gonna be super curious. Like, I was actually talking to my husband about this yesterday. I was like, I'm really curious to see in the next few generations if we almost see a complete 180 because of how much of a